Hello and welcome to Snyder's Return, a tabletop role-playing podcast. Today my guest, when not addressing an open letter to the populace from his heart, can be found after dusk in the Temple of Boom as Victor Temple, Baron of the Valley. Is the darkness imprisoning him? Is it all that he sees? Absolute horror? As he cannot live and yet cannot die. In other lives we find him on the frontier surviving or moving freely from one D&D adventure to the next. It is an absolute pleasure to say welcome to B. Dave Waters. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, babe. I'm going to go ahead and tell you something. I'm going to say that was the finest introduction I've ever gotten. Got LA by Night woven in there. Got Silver and Steel. Got a little Metallica. My favorite band, Brava. Extra points. One. My favorite song. It's like you brought me flowers. This is yeah. Brava.
If I knew your address, I may have sent you flowers, but I couldn't promise that. But thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say. But this is all about you and what you bring to the table, almost literally in some instances, and the community at large. So without further ado, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got into tabletop role-playing games to start with, please?
B. Dave Walters, I say words about things. I'm probably one of the busiest people in tabletop gaming. I'm on Silver and Steel for D&D Beyond. I'm on Ascension on Roll For It. I run the Dungeons and Dragons: A Dark and Wish stream for Wizards of the Coast. I do a lot of World of Darkness streaming. As of this time, we're doing a Rage Across New York. Also, I'm on Agon, the heroic adventure series on Bard and Barbarian. I run about 6 to 10 games a week for my Patreon, and that's not counting like charity stuff and one-shots and writing gigs and all of the like. So it is a fun but hectic existence that I live. And I got into it, I think like so many of us, when I was around 13. Started playing, I started with Riffs, actually, playing with my friends. Very quickly branched out to AD&D, and the I would say just went on from there. I got into Werewolf the Apocalypse around late high school. Actually got into Werewolf before I got into Vampire. And tabletop gaming has just been with me my whole life. There's never really been a time that I wasn't playing in a campaign somewhere with someone. And just recent years, as the ability to be a pro at it has manifested, I got the ability to be a pro at it, and here we are. It's been very unlikely, so much so that I think if I just woke up tomorrow and it was 2016 and the last 4 years hadn't even happened, it would I'd be like, yeah, for a lot of reasons, I'd be like, yeah, that all makes sense. Yep, that all makes sense.
My first question, and something I'll actually come on to later, is with all of that, when do you find time to sleep?
What is this sleep op that you speak of? I do not know these words. Yeah, I got special training. I have 2 little girls, so I went through the gauntlet of not sleeping with babies, and I guess I just it carries on. I don't know. I do it like once a week, maybe. I'm like a python, just like sleep for 20 hours once a week, and then just kind of keep going.
I thought it might have been a balance of cat naps and power hours, but whatever works for you. So
No, I am not a napper. If I don't sleep for at least an hour and a half, I wake up all groggy and it's worse. Like I can't do power naps, even though like neurologically it's supposed to help. Just not me, man. Not me.
It's fair enough. So just in your lead into this whole, there's a lot to unpack. Effectively, you were in so much, but let's concentrate on one system at a time. Maybe I think it's probably the safest option to this, and talk us through LA by Night moving into the 5th season. There's some promotion stuff happening on Twitter. So what can you tell us about LA by Night and your role within the coterie there and everything that's happening in that world?
Well, if you're not familiar with it, if you haven't seen the show, it's Vampire the Masquerade LA by Night. You can find it on YouTube. We have done 4 seasons. The 5th season is going to happen, just not sure when, because the entire world is on pause right now with COVID. Vampire is a storytelling game of personal horror. And I think the world of darkness and its mythos has affected all the vampire and werewolf stories of the last 25 years. So pretty much anything that you find familiar, if it's True Blood or Underworld or even
Mm,
Blade. Well, not so
mm.
much Blade because no thin blood could kill that many vampires, but the rest of them. Um, that's what it's like. And the thing that sets the world of darkness apart is that it is our world. It is this world, with some very minor adjustments, and we are vampires in it. And my character is what is called a baron. So I'm the ruler of a local area for my faction, and that is the Valley in California. If you're familiar with California, so when you hear that I'm the undisputed baron of the Valley, that's what that means. And it is just about originally four of us that kind of expanded to six of us, just trying to make our way through the nights and the twisting ennui of eternity, and losing a bit of yourself night after night after night and trying to hold on to as much as you can. It is very dramatic. It's far more dramatic than a lot of tabletop streams. We make it through whole episodes where we never roll dice at all.
Mm.
So in some ways, it's just as much a drama as it is a tabletop stream. But yeah, check it out. It's on YouTube. Episode 1 is I think we're at almost 1 million views on episode 1. It's getting close. So yeah,
Wow.
it's never too late to join the family. You got time to get caught up before we finally do season 5. And then I myself also run Vampire the Masquerade Long Beach by Night. We've done 2 seasons of that, which is in continuity. Well, it runs parallel with LA by Night. It's in the same continuity with LA by Night, and also did Anarchs of New York, showing what it was like over in New York. That right now we did the vampires. Now we're doing the werewolves over in New York. So I spend a lot of my time in the world of darkness.
Wow. I believe that included a foray up to Vancouver as well, if I'm not mistaken.
And I may just be showing my face up there again soon. Who can say?
Mm. More to be revealed in the future, I'm sure. And you mentioned a couple of things there. So, where can people go to find you and your content, sort of broad brushstrokes, just before we sort of move on?
The easiest place is my Twitter at bdavewalters. I'm working on assembling a singular content hub because my website is woefully outdated, but Twitter is definitely the nerve point of where I mention all the things that I'm doing. And there's so many podcasts that I'm blessed to do, like this one, although this one had the best introduction of any I've done.
Well, yeah.
Charity events. Hey, I only say it because it's true. Charity events, one shots. I just did like a 4 week run on Hunters Entertainment running Outbreak Undead. It's just it's I don't expect anybody to keep up with all the places I'm at because I barely can. So Twitter at bdavewalters. And I'm sure you're going to ask me about this later, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say right now, pinned at the top of my Twitter, I am crowdfunding for a documentary called Dear America from a Black Guy, trying to help save the country. It is going until next Wednesday or Tuesday, rather, I think is the real cutoff, Tuesday the 8th, because it's the morning of the 9th it is done. So I don't know when you're going to hear this, but if you hear it before the 8th, click the link at the top of my Twitter at bdavewalters. Take a look at the Indiegogo.
Well, would you moving on from Victor Temple and moving into the Dear America stuff that you're working on? And again, I highly recommend people clicking on that tweet. If this goes out after, which it potentially will, then please get involved any way you can. So to take another one of your songs from your playlist, who is going to inherit the Empire of Dirt? A bit of Johnny Cash there. What is the Dear America? Would you like to expand on that since we've touched on it?
Yes. It right now people are yelling at each other isn't working. People are dying. People are literally dying over the fact that it is more important to own the other side than it is to recognize people's baseline humanity. And that's what I'm trying to get back to is fostering discussions. I have no illusions that we're all going to agree on things. There's never been a time that everyone agreed on things, but I think just recognizing that those people, those people are still human beings. And as such, there's lots of things that we have in common. And I think it's more important to get back to, or at least it is very important to get back to that realization of the baseline humanity of all of us and start building on the things that we do have in common. Everybody wants a roof on their head, food in their
Mm.
bellies, yeah, a safe world for their children, a better life for their children, things like that. And I think when we can at least reestablish a certain level of respect, and then we can build off of that to have a certain amount of healthy discourse. Because right now there is no healthy discourse. So that's what it is. I'm trying to bring back to the table is just an ability to talk to people with reason and sanity.
It's a noble cause, and I really hope that more people take it up, and as you say, come to the table with this mindset that we're trying to create and foster, and draw the good out of the humanity that's in us all. So it's a fantastic cause, I have to say.
Well, I appreciate it, and it's just it occurred to me that it was within my power to do, and so I have to do it. So
Of course, of course. So moving on from people infected with one thing to you trying to stay alive on the frontier in quite another. You're also involved in the We're Alive Frontier stuff. It's the Undead Outbreak game. Would you like to sort of touch on that as well, please?
yeah, it's funny because I've gone on record many times saying that I'm actually not really a fan of horror, and I particularly don't like zombies. But this opportunity came. This was the first big stream I got to do was Outbreak Undead, and I was an alternate. I've told this story before. I was an alternate where the original concept of the show is that it was just going to be just a meat grinder, just a bloodbath. And so many people were going to die. That's why they had other people waiting in the wings to jump in. And we shot the whole thing over 4 days, the whole season. And I was the second alternate of three. The first one got called up on the second day. I don't want to ruin it because if you haven't watched We're Alive, it's an astonishing show. It's also on YouTube now. We're Alive Frontier.
Mm.
I have to say because We're Alive is a podcast series that we did this stream set in that world. So if you just look up We're Alive, you'll find all sorts of things. We're Alive Frontier. Um, and that's all because the We're Alive franchise was created by KC Wayland. We were playing the Outbreak Undead game set in that world. So we made it all the way through. It was the night. So we did a Friday and a Saturday. And if you'd seen me that Saturday when I went home very sad because I was so excited about the idea that I was going to have an opportunity to do this. This was going to be my big break. And then it really looked
Mm.
like it wasn't going to happen. And I was very sad. And because I came and I sat there for the entire filming, I watched it all on set because my rationale was if I got called up, I wanted to know what was going on and be able to just jump right in. So then I showed up on Sunday morning. Actually, Saturday, I was told this is to be ready, be in the wings, and I was separated from everyone. So I kind of like set off by myself and missed a big chunk of it on Saturday and went home like very sad Saturday night. Then I came in Sunday morning and they were like, yes, no, we're going to get you in today. And I was like, cool. And then still was like a bunch of delays and it really looked like it wasn't going to happen. And when I did finally get in, again, I won't spoil it for you because it was bananas, but I did the equivalent of hitting a hole in one in front of a live audience on camera, to win the PGA Tour. Just a very improbable sequence of events all played out right there. And I got to come back for season two, did all season two, and it was incredible. And I think one of the things that we realized very early on was what we thought was this gore game was really a game of hope in the survival and the fact that you can make it over overwhelming odds. And as I said, as of this recording, just over the last 4 weeks, I just did a Outbreak Undead short run for Hunters Entertainment set in their zombie universe, which is very similar to the universe of We're Alive, where they're not
Mm.
zombies so much as infected creatures like I Am Legend. And I got to put some friends of mine through that same beat grinder, and it was it's quite an experience. It's quite an experience. I'll say that. Yeah.
That's with was that with Ivor Norman? Was
Uh, It is Ivan's company, but
ah,
because Ivan is one of the owners of Hunters Entertainment, but he was not in
yes.
the stream. It was Luis Carrazzo, which Vampire the Masquerade, or for LA by Night fans know, Markia McCarty, Melee Damage, who same thing, Long Beach by Night and Dark and Wish fans know, um, and Michelle Wynn Bradley were my players.
Okay. Well, that's definitely something to look forward to coming out, because that whole We're Alive and the zombie side of stuff is draws the attention, definitely draws my eye. So I'll be looking out for that, definitely. Um, so that's like two systems down, and we haven't touched on the 30 other you've already mentioned. But maybe we'll continue on the more established route, and discuss your involvement with Dungeons and Dragons in its myriad of ways. If you wouldn't mind sort of touching on some of your favorite projects you're working on or have worked on, characters, and wherever you'd like to sort of take us.
Yeah, NDA, NDA, NDA. It's wild. It is wild that every game that I have grown up with and really loved and really got lost in, I've got to contribute something to now, which is wild. I've got to affect the canon of everything I've wanted to do, except Rifts. I haven't played Rifts in a minute. So, hey, Palladium Games, anybody that's gotten in at Rifts, let me know. I need to write something for Rifts on principle. And then I will have, check them all off. Yeah, I've had the opportunity to write an official comic book for Dungeons and Dragons. It was Dungeons and Dragons: The Dark and Wish, which actually is a transmedia story, which means the exact same characters in the same story is occurring in multiple mediums. So the events of the comic and the events of the stream are all the same lives of these same characters, telling like a singular narrative. We
Mm,
just did to see. We just actually, I think as of now, tomorrow, the season finale will air for season two, but we are coming back for a third season, which has been fantastic. I do play freely on Silver and Steel for on D&D Beyond, who he's my lucky boy. So when I go and do other appearances places, that's usually the character I play. And like you said, I play all these games. I'm at the point now that when I make a character, it's just what have I not done? When I made Victor for LA by Night, my overt goal, I knew I wanted a Ventru, but I wanted him to be not Chateau. I didn't want him to be a leader of unruly masses that just don't listen to everyone's collective ruin. And then, spoiler alert, that's sort of exactly what happened. So by the time it came along to play freely, I just picked like I'd never played a halfling. I picked this wild build because he was just supposed to be he was just supposed to be a one shot character, and I keep calling him my lucky boy because he has created his own luck. He was I got was main cast on that show, ended up being main cast on a spinoff show. He's the first character I got into a video game for Idle Champions. Like my lucky little halfling has opened all these doors, and just I think to me, I take storytelling very seriously. I take the fact that these are worlds and places that people can go get lost in and take their mind off their troubles for a while and experience their own mythology, that they can build their own legends and they get to be the heroes. I
mm,
take that very seriously. And the fact that I've got to add a link to the chain of 50 plus years of continuity of the Forgotten Realms is wild. And I think that all peaked for me during the Descent event, when they built Waterdeep and we did the off the table like semi dramatic LARP thing that we did then.
mm.
When I walked into the yawning portal, and it was the yawning portal, and I walk over and Ed Greenwood is there dressed as Elminster, and he turns over and he's like, "Elminster of Shadowdale, well met." If you watch that video, I freeze there for a second and I just look at him and I'm like, that just happened. That just happened. I just met Elminster in the yawning portal. Okay. Cool, 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 cool. Oh, yeah, what I'm supposed to do. And then, keep going. But
Mhm.
it's it is. I just tell people I've rolled some um very timely crits in my life. Like my own hard work and effort has allowed me to roll with advantage on some of those, but
Mm.
I've just been very lucky.
They often say you make your own luck in life, but you definitely sort of channeled some of Freely's by the sound of it.
Hmm.
Uh, Curiously, just before we started speaking, Todd Kenrick had put a tweet up, and I can't quote it because that means I had to prepare it slightly better. But he mentioned about exploding an elf. It all seemed very cryptic. I'm sure that's a Silver and Steel reference. Um, but it
Actually, that is a reference to the one-on-one shot he did with me on Sunday mornings. I have a series. Haven't done it in a couple of weeks, but I have people begging me to bring it back. Where I sat down with just very interesting people in the TTRPG community, and we just played either Vampire or D&D one-on-one. And with him, I brought on he and his wife, and Averin exploded an elf in that game. I won't tell you how, but you can look at the Todd Kenrick and Megan Kenrick one-on-one shot to see what it is he's referring to there. Yep.
I might be misremembering. Have you had Matthew Lillard on as well? I might
I
be
did. He
misremembering.
was the
Right,
first guest.
he
He was the
was.
first guest on one-on-one shots. Yeah, I've Matthew Lillard, Jim Zub, Melee Damage, Jasmine Bular, Luis Carrazzo, Anna Proser, James Hake, Brendan Lee Mulligan, Tanya DePass, Todd and Megan. Um, this is all off the top of my dome, so anybody I don't mention, I mean no disrespect. Alicia Marie Body. Uh,
Many
Yeah, and I'm
more
sure
and
there's
more
more.
to follow.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna, like, randomly just start listing people's names here as I go along. Again, I apologize for anyone I did miss. It was no disrespect. But yeah,
It's,
it was a very fun project. I gotta get back into it more for sure.
I'm sure people will be queuing at the door. Absolutely, because they are brilliant. Which sort of leads on to a project within a project, or in support of a charity, I should say, in charity work. You have been part of Jasper's Game Day this year. What was that
Mhm.
like?
This Jasper's Game Day was an unusually wild one, because I won't tell you. So here's the charity games are always wild because usually it's like, you can donate to affect the outcome. And so they go bananas all over the
Hmm.
place. And it's a draw from the deck of many things. And this guy's got 20, and this monster shows up, and that monster shows up. And my niche is level 20. I do level 20 games, is how I enjoy playing. And so few people do it. So I'm always out here doing it to try and show people that it's not so bad at level 20. And uh, this one was a lot of fun. We had a big old group, and the person that donated for us to hit our goal asked for something that could best be described as catastrophic. And again, I won't spoil it, but a lot happens. Just a lot happens in that, and it's again, I'm so fortunate to be able to make a difference in people's lives doing something that I love, being able to get to have fun with incredible people and also make a difference at the same time, is just it is a wild and insane thing. So that's why when I get called up to do charity, I do my best to move heaven and earth to make it happen.
All right. Well, some people might be unfamiliar with Jasper's Game Day. Would you be able to give us just a brief rundown of what it is and what drew you to sort of join in their project?
It is kind of expanded now to Jasper's Game Week. Jasper's Game Day is a suicide prevention charity. Um, there was a young man who took his own life, and this was an outgrowth out of that to help at risk teens. Um, Usually, it disproportionately affects the LGBTQ community, but it is a problem across the spectrum. I myself lost a friend to suicide when I was a teenager, so I'm very acutely and uniquely aware of the pain that comes along with that. Um,
Hmm.
lost another relative later, a little later in life to it too. And it's just amazing how just feeling like you're not alone is worth its weight in gold, which is part of the strength of tabletop gaming. It's the strength of storytelling and the communities around it. It's the strength of fandom. It's feeling like you're a part of something. And
Mm.
what Jasper's Game Day does is help remove that sense of hopeless isolation for people and literally saves lives in the process. So I'm passionate about a lot of causes, but that one in particular, I think, has the most one-to-one correlation about keeping people here with us longer than others, and so it's very much near and dear to my heart.
It's very moving and very touching, and thank you for sharing those that information with us. Clearly, you didn't have to, and I appreciate you sort of opening up a little bit for me. Um, so moving into community, then sort of stepping away from that, because the community has welcomed yourself, myself, so many people are sort of coming into this community. Where is it you want to see tabletop role playing games move into next? Where do you want to see the change sort of take place?
Some decent movies and TV would be nice. I mean, historically, it's all been kind of corny and everything, like Hercules and Xena, which don't get me wrong, I loved Hercules and Xena. Um, but more Game of Thrones ish content where it's because that was the genius of the Marvel movies. They could have made them all goofy and silly, and they didn't. They made them like they mattered, like the heroes were fighting for something serious. um I would like to see that happen, content wise. Also, it's great to see this geek renaissance come about where it's cool to be a geek. I very much came up in the era that was not the case, so to be like, oh, okay, and everybody likes the things I've loved all along. Great, cool, because it's valuable and useful. I would just like to um I would just like to see that continue to expand and just see people
Mm,
give it a shot. I mean, even if you're curious, if you're even remotely curious, um, get some friends together, roll some dice, and have a good time. Don't stress about it. Don't agonize over it. Just the easiest way I tell people to get into a game, and it doesn't matter if it's D&D, if it's vampire, if it's whatever system it is. Pick your favorite movie that's the closest to it. So if you're like, well, I really like the Lord of the Rings, cool. Who's your favorite character? I really like Legolas. Great, you're an elven ranger, dope. Now we're in the game, uh you wake up in the village and you hear a knock at the door. What would you like to do? Well, I go answer the door. When you open it, no one's there. Oh, well, I look around. Well, now you're playing, see, you're in it. It's that simple. And you can do it with anything, so give it a shot. And if you don't know how to start, honestly, with anything I've said, if you have more questions, my DMs are open on Twitter, so you can just shoot me a message and I'll help you out.
well, you draw me in. I want to know who knocked on the door now.
Ah,
That's what
ha,
I'd say.
ha!
Teasing me in such a way.
That's the
Uh,
magic of it.
it is magic, and again, drawing people in, and I think acceptance is a big part. Just accepting each each other, and that it is a game, and you can have fun with it, and as you say, find a common reference point you can work from that everybody can sort of understand and sort of roll with. Definitely.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's it's difficult to, as an adult especially, sometimes even as a kid, but as an adult, to just give yourself permission to play, to give
Mm,
yourself permission to be silly, to give yourself permission to fail at something. um it's fine, and oftentimes those are the best um the times that the best stories come out of it, because I will tell you that, again, I really do not want to ruin how We're Alive Frontier ended. The show's astonishing and you should watch it. I will just say, before my incredible hole in one happens, I very much thought I had failed utterly. Like, I thought I'd waited this entire weekend to essentially get in here and get killed immediately. It's just like, well, okay, great, awesome. And you can like see it on my face that I'm like, oh, all right, okay, yeah. And then something fantastic happened. So, um, you just roll with it, just roll with it and enjoy it, and you will find out so much about yourself. I'm a fairly introspective person, and but I still found out things about playing these roles that I did kind of keep ending up in roughly the same positions in games with roughly the same kind of character. Like I kind of always ended up being the party face, the talker. I
Mm.
always ended up being the diplomat. And unless I consciously play a character who is not that, it still happens because that's I start you start bumping up the parameters of you and your personality and consciousness, and only then can you consciously exceed those things and become somebody else on demand, which is surprisingly liberating.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And that sort of leads me into a sort of follow-on question, which is, what's been the biggest influence on your sort of DMing storytelling style, or even your character play style? What sort of, where do you draw your inspiration from? You mentioned being introspective there.
Um, I don't know where I arrived at this realization, but I say it quite often. A dungeon master, storyteller, whatever the nomenclature of the system,
Hmm.
job is to elicit an emotional reaction. If your players are laughing or crying, if they're terrified, if they're enraged, whatever they're feeling, if they're feeling something, you're doing your job correctly. Your only enemy is meh. If they're zoning out and on their phone or not paying attention, which, by the way, as an aside, pro tip, you have it within your rights to ban phones at your table, storytellers. You don't have to allow it. But that is your job to allow people to feel like their actions or their inactions have an impact in the things they do or don't do matter, and that they are at cause in the narrative. Because a lot of times in life we feel like we don't matter and what we do don't matter, and in these games that is the gift, is that it does. um and your job as a storyteller is to put people in those positions where they can have that, and they can play in that sandbox. And that may mean you have this elaborate murder mystery concocted, and they decide they want to go play with the farmer's pigs for 3 hours. But if your players are giggling and having a great time, let them, man, let them, let them. And then hook it back in when you can, because this I think the reason why these relationships like stay so strong. Like I played World of Warcraft very seriously for years, and I got friends from the guild that are like real friends. Like we know everything about each other and have never been in the same room together.
Hmm.
And the bonds of that friendship is the common experiences that we shared together, like struggling during those raids and things like that, and fighting and scraping to make something happen. And it's the same with your D&D group. If you've been lucky enough to have a group you played with for any time, you've all got those stories of the time that you brought down the ogre by putting the immovable rod on his forehead, or you one shot the dragon with the arrow of slaying. The arrow of slaying story is super true, by the way. That happened in one of my games, or any of that. And those are the things that will stick with you forever. And
Hmm.
that's the joy of this medium, um, that delivers in a way that no other medium does. And your job as storyteller is, to the best of your ability, to facilitate the chances for that to happen. But although I guess your question was, what is my influence for that? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
That,
because I just realized
no,
I
no,
haven't
no.
actually
You
answered your question.
you carry on, please, please.
It's I am first and foremost a storyteller, and I have been for many years, and I've looked into very carefully what makes stories work. Why do things resonate? Why does Jung's concept of individuation and the archetypes, Joseph E. Campbell with the hero's journey, why does that matter to us so much? That was my influence. The fact Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, Aragorn, Neo, they're all the same character. It's telling the same story. And so understanding that that's what people are craving on a subconscious level, wanting to give them that at the table, that's my influence.
Well, yeah, I hadn't, maybe I hadn't thought about it in that way before, and it's definitely something I'll be taking away from this interview. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. I knew I'd learn a lot, and I just wasn't expecting it to be to be that. So thank you from the bottom of my DM gut and my heart.
Well, thank you. Yes,
So
that's no, please
so
go ahead. Go ahead. I'm babbling.
well, I was going to say, we've spoken about all the systems and your influences there, and you've dedicated seemingly all of your time, as we spoke briefly about before about getting rest. So you sort of dedicated your time to the entertainment of others and bringing people into this world and sort of time with your friends and things. Who, if you're able to say, is there anyone you thought, yes, I really love to collaborate with this person or work with this system, or is there anything like that you thought to yourself, I'm looking long term now, can I get this worked out?
Uh this is gonna sound more vain than I mean it to. I do not mean that. I'm being dead serious. I've been lucky enough that it's like I know everybody in this space.
Hmm.
I've played with everybody, you know. Um, now, I just shot. We shot Pirates of Leviathan with Mercer and Marisha. That's launching in 2 weeks. Relative to now, I've gotten to play with Deborah Wall, Matthew Lillard, Joe Manganiello, Chris Perkins, Brinley Mulligan. Um, uh, and please don't take that list as exhaustive. If I didn't say your name, it's not that I don't respect your time or your talent. It's just that I've been, again, fortunate to get to kind of the top of this, unique niche, this unique subculture.
Hmm.
Um, so um anyone I want access to, I've kind of got. That being said, that what my ambition now is transitioning into more of my own original content. I'm very happy and grateful to be telling the stories that I'm telling, but I want to do more of the building of my own unique worlds, and allowing people to come play in my sandbox,
Hmm.
is the thing that I want. And don't get me wrong, I'll be telling D&D stories and vampire stories as long as anybody wants to listen to me talk about them. But yeah, that's the next step for me. Is more completely original content.
Well, that's definitely something that I'll be looking out for, and I'm sure many others will certainly be doing so as well. Your influence, should we say, as you mentioned, you play with effectively the who's who with respect to tabletop role playing games and systems, and you're able to sort of mix and match and take influences and bring to the table so many different sort of skills and scenarios and things that something that you created from your mind and your heart would surely be a joy to play. I got a little bit emotional there.
One oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm like, hey, don't worry. I still have plenty of opportunities to let you down.
It's okay to fail. I think we've learned from this so far. It's okay to fail.
Hey, to fall 7 times is to rise 8. Yep, life
Well,
begins
there you
today.
go. I often still get told it's not how we fail, it's how we recover. So much in
Mhm.
the same vein. Much in the same vein.
Well, at the risk of waxing overly philosophical, I'm an everything for a reason person, and if you're gonna do that, you gotta be an everything for a reason person even
Mm.
when things don't go your way. And I can look back over my life at so many things that I thought were just crushing defeats that still just led directly to something else dope, you know? So it's when things don't work out, I don't really like linger too long on the disappointment of it. I just
Mm.
keep rolling to the next thing. But that's also part of the reason why I work so hard is I realize these opportunities are just that. They're just opportunities and they will be what I make them. So I try and make the most of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I appreciate the fact you took the opportunity to talk to me and my opportunity to talk to you. So I'm definitely pouncing on those opportunities where they come. So I know where you're coming from there. You mentioned briefly life and rolling on through things. What is it you do away from the game table?
Again, somebody asked me about this yesterday. They were like, "What do you do in your free time?" I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." Because I've been lucky. that, and I know I keep using that word lucky and fortunate and blessed and all, but there's no other way to describe it, because yes, it is true. I work really, 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 really hard. But lots of people work hard. That doesn't mean you're gonna make it. Like, I mean, like, people digging ditches are working hard. Like, I mean, effort in and of itself, while a vital component, is not, the component. That
Mm.
you do need to be in the right place, the right time, and all you can do is try and facilitate things in such a way that you will be prepared when the time comes. Like, there's an Abraham Lincoln quote that I'm paraphrasing, that I will prepare myself continuously, and eventually my chance will come. So since my vocation is stuff that I would do for fun anyway, a lot of times I am still doing a lot of these things. When I get to the point that I need to step away from for a second, and this is always a risk for anyone who is self-employed doing anything. When you go to work, it's easy to know when you start and stop. When you're a self-employed, the line becomes very blurry, and you have
Mm.
to give yourself permission to stop and do nothing. I enjoy hanging out with my kids, of course. My girls are both super dope. I like talking to them. And like, go getting ice cream and like that sort of thing, because as they're getting older, they're 9 and 12 now, and we have conversations and talk about stuff. That's great. And also just getting caught up on TV, movies, allowing myself to get lost in someone else's world. Um, is the thing I do, because a lot of times I don't have time to stay caught up on things like I used to, because I'm grinding 24/7, or
Mm.
I'm grinding like 20/6. um like right now, I'm neck deep in Lovecraft country, which is, terrifying, and I hate it. And because I don't like horror, and I wouldn't watch it, except I have to watch it because everybody thinks I will. So I just like under the cover, peeking between my eyes every episode at Lovecraft country. Um, yeah, things of that nature. Like going and partaking in something like that is what I if I if but even so, in its own way, to me, that's all still involved. I'm still just paying attention to how the story's being told, what's moving me, what's working, what's not working, so I can have an informed opinion to better facilitate what I do. It's weird. I don't know. I have this like techno monastic existence, I suppose, where everything's a devotional.
Wow. Your life sounds a lot more tiring than mine does most of the time. So I've full credit to you for everything you do. We've touched on a lot of topics and various parts of your personal life, professional life, and things like that. Is there anything we haven't covered so far that you would like to bring to prominence? Something that a topic maybe that you would like to bring to the fore?
Um, yes. This it in I'm going to try to be nuanced in what I'm saying here. Because if I'm not careful, sometimes people get upset with me. This time right now of quarantine, and God willing, my friend, you're listening to this a year or two from now, and you're free and easy and walking down the street doing whatever you want. But as of the time of this recording, we were still mostly locked down. It will. Let me qualify this a little bit more. This is an extremely difficult time for some people. It is a catastrophic time for many people. Um, it is an uncharacteristically and unusually difficult time for all people. However, I will point out two things to you. Once the world restarts, you will miss the simplicity of this time, when you have to go back out and sit in rush hour and sit in stupid board meetings, and only have an hour to yourself to go to lunch and all of that, and have everything measured out again. When the office life world restarts, you will miss this time, the simplicity of this time. And to a certain extent, I don't know that it is ever going to go back to exactly what it was, because the thesis of remote work has now been very much proven. But more of it will come back. You will miss the simplicity of this time. The second thing, it will never be any easier. It will never be any easier than it is right now to do that thing that you have in your mind and in your heart that you've wanted to do, to write that book, write that screenplay, write that song, start that stream. Like, it will never be any easier than right now. So The only thing that every human being is equal in is time. We all have 168 hours in a week. You, me, Oprah, Obama, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, 168 hours in a week. That's it. So there is time to do anything that you want with planning. It may not be enough time in a day. It may not be enough time in a week, but in a month, 2 months, 3 months, you can make literally anything happen, and it's never going to be any easier than now. Now, let me issue a disclaimer there, because some